Good morning. Welcome to Watershed. We're so glad that you are here this morning. I want to invite you to join us in singing as you're coming in the room.
I have closed my eyes. I have clenched my fist. I have shut my heart, but you have opened it. I have wandered far away, but you were already there with open arms, with open arms. I will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love reach inside me. I will let love. When the waters rise, when the levee breaks, when my world starts feeling like an earthquake, when your love starts sinking in and I can see on the waves your open arms, your open arms. I will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love reach inside me. I will let love. I will let love. I will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love reach inside me. I will let love. I will let love. You won't stop, ever stop chasing my heart. Won't stop, ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing. Your love won't stop. Your love won't stop. You won't stop, never stop chasing my heart. Won't stop, ever proclaim there's no containing. Your love won't stop. Your love won't stop. You won't stop. Never stop chasing. My heart won't stop. Ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing. Your love won't stop. 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 Your love. How will let love surprise me? How will let love bring inside me? How will let love? How will let love? How will let love find me? How will let love surprise me? How will let love bring inside me? How will let love? 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 How will let
I want to thank you all so much for being here, for singing with us. And often we take a little bit of a pause as people are coming in. It feels like summer's in full swing now, and there's a way in which that creates some shifts in us, both in our bodies and in some of the rhythms that we have. And there's a lot going on, not just in the shifts and change of seasons, but in our communities, in our world, in our politics. And so often this time is a space for us to find grounding, a space to take a few deep breaths, to remember what it means to be together, to share space with people. And so I want to give you a little bit of room as you're coming in, you're grabbing coffee, settling in from your week, to take a few deep breaths. Maybe you want to close your eyes. Maybe you want to take a look around and see the community of people here with you. But as we do that, we're going to sing another song that speaks to this closeness of the divine. And one of the reasons that we take some deep breaths and that we try to still our hearts and minds is to remind ourselves of that God's not far away, that God's close, maybe even as close as our breath. River of gladness, fill my soul. Jesus, you're my greatest thought. God, I know. I see the light. I see the lightning. I hear your voice inside the cracking thunder singing. Nothing stands between us, so nothing stands between us but love now. And nothing stands between us, so nothing stands between us but love. A river of gladness, take control. There's a cup of joy for every taste of sorrow. I see the light, I I see the lightning, I hear your voice inside the cracking thunder, singing, nothing stands between us, so nothing stands between us but love now. Singing, nothing stands between us, so nothing stands between us but love now. Oh, nothing stands between us, so nothing stands between us but love. Have we tried to scale your walls in vain? To cross your seas, pushed against your waves? What for all the miles have you to say? Were you there beside me this whole way? Have I tried to scale your walls in vain? To cross your seas, I push against your waves. What for all the miles have you to say? Were you there beside me this whole way? You always find me in between the thunder and the lightning. You always find me in between the thunder and the lightning. You always find me in between the thunder and the lightning. You always find me in between the thunder and the lightning. You always find me in between the thunder and the lightning. You always find me in between the thunder and the lightning. Oh, in between the thunder and the lightning. God, as we come into this space this morning, God, may you remind us of your closeness. Remind us that in the thick of everything, when it feels like there might not be hope, and it feels like the world is bearing down on us, God, that your presence is available, it's around us, it's in us. And God, that this reminder is for us to breathe through it. To connect with you through each and every breath that we take. God, we come together to be reminded of the divine. Come together to experience you through community. And so, God, we're grateful for this space, this time. People who are seeking together, looking together, engaging the mystery together. We thank you, God. We love you. We love each other. In your name, amen. I'm going to give you some space now to connect with one another, to say hello, say hi, and then we'll continue with the morning.
I'm not on yet. Here I am. All right, everyone, the time has come. No, Kim, there was a timer. No excuses. Walk of shame right there. I love your shirt. Yeah. All right, everyone, the reason that you get up in the morning, the thing that you're looking forward to all week, the announcements. Excellent, yeah. The first announcement has nothing to do with anything, but I was excited about it. Go ahead and throw this picture up. Look at that. Dominique did extroversion. She was just at a coffee shop, and lo and behold, Andy Dalton. If you're not a sports ball fan, that's the QB2 for the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, so she just went up and was like, hey, can I take a picture with you? And he said yes. So anyway, now you know. So couple other things. So I have noticed, because I was standing out in our awkwardly small entryway, that there are a lot of new people here this morning. So first off, hear this, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. Look at you. You got applauded just for showing up. Very American. Yeah. Very straight white man. All right. Back on track. If you are new with us, we would love to say hello to you. You can do that in the more outgoing extrovert way by meeting us in the back of the room after the service. But we also provide this wonderfully introverted, more incognito way where you can just scan that QR code, fill out a digital form, and you'll hear from us via the safe confines of your email address, assuming you give us a real one. But no, we would really encourage you to do that. It's a great way to get connected, to hear what's going on, kind of just get pointed in the right direction. Speaking of there being a lot of new people in this room being wonderfully full for a balmy, almost July Sunday, some of you have been getting a little fast and loose with parking. I know, right? Yeah, the neighborhood is not entirely gentrified yet. And so some of our neighbors have gravel, what are they called, driveways. And I don't think anyone's been meaning to do this, but a couple of Sundays in a row, we've had cars parked in front of those driveways. It doesn't necessarily mean it was us. It could have been the salon. But we're gonna own our stuff, and we promised our neighbors that we would do a bit of a PSA this morning. So if you would just be good neighbors to our good neighbors and be mindful when you're parking. Thank you. couple other just little heads up things. We were originally planning on having a workshop led by our friends at P-Flag this afternoon following the service. Our bad for scheduling that in the middle of summer. We are rescheduling it for the end of summer. So tentatively, it's going to be at the end of August, the final Sunday of August. We'll have more concrete information in the coming weeks, but we actually think it's going to be a great experience, and so we wanted to get as many people as possible there, which is why we're pushing it to a time that hopefully is a little bit better for everyone's schedules. Something that is still happening for sure, however, is a concert with Derek Webb on August 10th. If you are not familiar with Derek Webb, that probably means that you were spared Christian contemporary music in the 90s. He was part of the CCM supergroup Caedmon's Call, and then he got a little edgy and got kicked out of Christianity. But we love Derek. He's been multiple times to Watershed, and he just released Survival Songs, a brand new album in solidarity with our LGBTQIA siblings. A Derek Webb concert is always a good time. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that there's a chance this would be the highlight of your summer. So I would encourage you to sign up. We got plenty of weeks to go, but we're trying to get it out there because we're not actually in charge of the signups. They are, so we don't know when it fills up. So get in now to ensure that there's room and to help us know whether we want to have it upstairs or downstairs. So anyway, the last announcement is one that I'm going to need a little bit of help for. So if Madeline, our student pastor, would join me. So we had what was our version of a student summer camp. Mm-hmm. Now, not this most recent week, but the prior week. You guys got back a week from yesterday?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so first off, Madeline, tell us a little bit about what this camp entailed. What did y'all do?
Yeah, so we walked around DC. We visited a little part of all of the city, and we went to 4 museums, and that was definitely what the students loved doing. I had to literally drag them out of every museum. Like, we have tickets for the next one. We have to go. They're like, no, I love this. And I'm like, okay, that's great. We love learning.
Yeah, so don't let anyone tell you that the youths don't like learning, because they totally do.
Yeah.
So what would you say was the, highlight, takeaways, memorable, sentimental moments from this trip?
It was a group of 9 students, which was like the biggest trip Watershed's ever taken for students, which was a really cool thing. So that was awesome. And they didn't really know each other before we went. And so there was this big community getting together, talking about things they had in common. And I would say that was every night when I checked in with them, I was like, hey, what was the best part of the day? They were like, getting to talk to each other. I was like, okay, we love that. That's what the goal of the trip was. So it was really cool.
Awesome. And like Madeline said, biggest kind of summer trip we've ever had, and crucially, wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have been able to bring all those students if not for the generosity of this community. Many of you stepped up and sort of gave above and beyond in order to allow, to make this trip more affordable for our families and to allow them to rent a big van to drive together so they didn't have to carpool, which was safer and allowed for some of that communal time that you were talking about. They got to hang out with our old family, Pastor Blair, when they were up there. And so we just want to say thank you. Summer is often a lull time when it comes to giving and sustainability here, and probably everywhere. And so for those of you who kind of just went above and beyond to make this possible, we are eternally grateful. And I'm not exaggerating. Eternally grateful. For the rest of eternity, we're going to be grateful for you. So thank you for that. Thank you to Madeline. If you give her a round of applause. And thank you to you for being here, for continuing to be generous to fuel the mission and the work of Watershed. If you ever have any questions about what that looks like, where that money's going, in addition to funding amazing experiences and memories for our students, come talk to us. We'd love to tell you about that. And whatever happens next is probably going to be cooler than me, so enjoy that as well.
Well, you make it sound so pretty, even when it's not. Didn't choose, but it's the only one we've got. And sometimes I get so tired of getting tied up in my thoughts. You're the only one that ever makes it stop. God, it hurts to be human without you.
we're buckled and preparing for the crash. Like we're walking down a road of broken glass. Now if we defeat all odds and it was us against the world, you could count on me, you know I'd have your back. God, it hurts to be human. Without you, I'd be losing. And someday we'll face the music. But God, it hurts to be human. But I got you. Hey, you got me too. But I got you. Hey, you got me too. The hope floats away. If you could spend a day in my shoes, your mind would change. If you know what I've gone through, we want the same. Maybe then you'll understand how it hurts to be human. God, it hurts to be human. Without you, I'd be losing. And someday I'll face the music. But God, it hurts to be human. But I got you. Hey, you got me too. And I got you. Hey, you got me too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name's Matt. I'm the lead pastor here. I love when it's a really cool morning to build a fire pit. In our backyard, we've got this wonderful fire pit. And in May, it was one of those cool mornings. I was out there, had my fire going, had my book that I was reading, my coffee, and there was a leftover kind of top portion of our Christmas tree. And I threw it on the fire. And, huge flame, a lot of smoke billowing out of the fire pit, drifting in between my house and my neighbor's house into the street. I didn't think too much about it. And then all of a sudden our doorbell rang, and it kept ringing, and we have 2 dogs, and they were just losing their mind. And it was pretty early. It was like 8 in the morning, and Donna comes bebopping downstairs. Bebopping's probably strong language. She sort of fumbles downstairs. She's got her bathrobe on, hair sticking up, and she's like, "Will you please answer the door? I just don't have it in me right now." And so I walk through the back door and into our foyer there, open the door, and standing on the other side of the door is this gentleman who is probably a little older than me. He's wearing a black bandana. He's got the Terminator sunglasses on, black leather vest, gray goatee, jeans, black leather boots. And when I look past him, on the street is this huge kind of Harley Davidson motorcycle, which I had heard come through the neighborhood a few minutes earlier. And he's standing there. And right out of the gate, it's almost like he's a little awkward, a little uncomfortable. He says, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I noticed all the smoke billowing out from behind your house. I was afraid it was on fire, and I was just calling to see if, ringing the doorbell to make sure everybody was all right and that everything's fine." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you. Like, that's so kind of you to do." And is before I could even finish like thanking him, it's almost like he could not get out of there fast enough. He's like, yeah, great, okay, great. And he starts walking away, and I'm like following him at this point, and I'm going, but that was so neighborly. Like, what a great, thank you so much. And he's like, okay, yeah, fine. Like, literally says that, yeah, okay, fine. Gets back on his Harley, drives away, and I'm like, what was going on there? All right, whatever. And I walk back in. I'm really perplexed. And I step inside the front door of my house, and we have a bathroom to the left. And I look, and I catch myself in the mirror, and I'm like, oh. Oh, I was wearing this shirt. Oh. Happy Pride Month. I have been waiting to tell that story since May. And it's a shameless plug. First of all, it's our last Sunday of Pride, so I felt like that was appropriate. But it's also a shameless plug for what's happening August 17th, which is the Pride Parade. The world needs more exposure to the joy, right? And so here's the thing. Our Kindred community does a phenomenal job of preparing for this parade that we've been doing now for the last several years. And I was talking with someone in leadership over the week, and I said, have you ever set a goal for how many people you would wish would walk in the parade with us? And I said, we haven't. The most we've had is maybe 50 or 60. And I said, well, we need 100. We need to crack the triple digits this year. And so what that means is that every person within the sound of my voice, will you please consider walking in the parade that particular day on August 17th? Please come here that morning, but also afterwards go meet up with us and be a part of that. And if we're gonna crack the triple digit mark, we're gonna need you to be recruiters per se, like your neighbors, your family, guys in leather vests with black leather shoes, like whoever it is, go ask people to be a part of this. We would love to see just a swelled volume of people at this event. So that's the first thing. That's the only thing this morning. That's all I got. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here. I'm really excited about this morning's conversation. We're in another week of this series on purpose, queering the norms of life and meaning and calling. And every once in a while, someone will ask me, what was it like, or how did you know when you were called to start Watershed? Or how did you know when you were called to be a pastor? Or how did you know when you were called to whatever, fill in the blank? And I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? If you're like me, you might have grown up with all these stories of like voices speaking or signs appearing in the stories that you were told in Sunday school or in church, where someone's calling was giving with great clarity and great precision. Noah, build an ark. Abraham, leave Hebron, sacrifice your son. Moses, return to Egypt and liberate my people. David, go slay a giant. Joseph, warn Pharaoh with your dreams. Ruth, declare an oath to Naomi. Jonah, go to Nineveh. Ezekiel, lay on your left side for 390 days. Ezekiel, turn over. Lay on your right side for 40 days. Hosea, take Gomer, a prostitute, to be your wife and start a family. Joseph, take Mary, an unwed mother, to be your wife. Paul, travel to Damascus and find your enemy Ananias. Simon Peter, Andrew, James, and John, drop your nets and follow me. Peter, step out of the boat and on to the water. And we could go on, right? Like the Bible is littered with stories like this. And I was thinking how most of all of these stories are so unique. They're so dramatic and often so obscure. And I don't know if this is worth mentioning or not, but there are deep troughs of political, economic, and social issues and themes that are animating the stories that I'm pointing to, who were written by a group of people who were on the margins. They were the powerless, not the powerful. And so whatever personal value or application that we were told to assign this growing up, for many of us, it was in the absence of this other thing that was happening within the context of the stories we were hearing. But also, there were no stories like, Jim, you're called to be a bartender. Jim, you're called to be a blacksmith or a riverboat captain, or Suzanne, you're called to be a seamstress or a potter. And the stories are often so obscure, so outrageous, and hard to relate to, especially given the distance between where we are now and 2,000 to 5,000 years ago. But these were the stories that many of us were handed. And we were also told that if you had this personal relationship with God or with Jesus, that was a portal of sorts into God's perfect plan or perfect calling for your life, that there's actually a purpose-driven life. How many of you read the book? Yeah. And the thing is, it's not a terrible premise. A life where purpose drives you is not a bad thing until you realize that purpose might have been misguided. And I think because we've been conditioned by the dramatic, the unique, the courageous, and the outrageous, it makes this question harder to wrestle with. What do I do if what I decide I'm called to do doesn't materialize? How do I know if I can trust whatever voice or intuition I sense might be speaking? What do I do if all I hear is silence or all I hear is distortion? Or what if I follow through with the best intentions on the planet and the outcomes are less than desirable or even tragic? What if I think the idea of calling is total BS to begin with? What does this mean? What does this mean about me or for me? What does this mean about God? What does this mean about the way I'm valued, affirmed, or seen by God or myself or others or my community? So this is a picture of Donna, who just sang, for the record, if you didn't know that. It's a picture of Donna with our family this past Mother's Day. To the right, that is our 20-year-old son, Mez, from Ethiopia. Next to him is Sullivan. He's 23 from Thailand. Next to him is Jyoti. She's our daughter, 26 from India. And that strapping young man to the left is what we hope to be our future son-in-law at some point, if we have it our way. And then Donna is holding what she describes as Matt's favorite child and best friend, cousin Johnny, our dog. So we formed our family through international adoption. That's our family. After spending close to a year in India, living alongside of and working alongside of refugee children, abandoned children, we experienced what we would have then described as a calling to form our family this way. And hence, our daughter came to us in, I think it was June of 2002. It's hard to talk about this process leading up to each adoption without including some sort of mythical or mystical or spiritual, maybe even divine language. And as a way of muddying the waters around calling this morning, I'd like permission to think out loud a bit in terms of this second time that we chose to adopt. After adopting our first daughter, Jyoti, our resources were exhausted. There's nothing left in the tank, after that experience. And so there was quite a bit of anxiety for both of us, and probably more for me than Donna, around how are we gonna fund a second go at this? I made maybe $40,000 a year. It's $13,000, and 23 years ago, that might have been, just was an extraordinary amount, like a Mount Everest amount, but sufficient to say we're in the middle of this wrestling match with ourselves and with God, as we would have described it back then. Now, as chance or fate or divine intervention would have had it, as we're wrestling through this, we happen to decide to take a trip to Disney World. It's the first time I'd ever been to Disney, First time, obviously, Jyoti had ever been there. I lived a pretty sheltered life. I didn't even see the ocean until I was 18 years old, you guys. So I lived kind of in this bubble for most of my upbringing. But this was an opportunity for she and I to experience this together. She was, itty bitty, just barely 3. So we're wrestling through all of this. But during the trip, 2 particular events transpired the day we went to the park. We could only afford to go one day. But on our way out of the park, at the end of the day, a couple that we had met over breakfast who had kind of taken to Jyoti, to be quite frank, as I'm leaving, one of the gentlemen, the husband of the couple, comes up behind me and sticks a $100 bill in my hand and insists on paying for our day at the park. In his words, not mine, God told us to do this. This is what he said. And so fast forward, a few hours later, we're at dinner at the Macaroni Grill in Orlando. Every time we go to Orlando, we're like, there's the Macaroni Grill. That's the place. We're at Macaroni Grill, and we meet this precious couple, probably in their late 60s, early 70s, and they too just took to Jyoti while we were waiting to be seated. And we didn't think too much of it at the time, but once we sat down, immediately our conversation returned to, hey, what are we going to do? We need to make this decision sooner than later. Like it's kind of in our crawl a little bit. And it was also interesting that someone had just paid for our day at the park, and we're like, geez, that's kind of odd. I wonder if God is trying to tell us something. This was the language we used at the time. And this is where it gets a little weird. There came a point in our conversation at dinner where we said to one another, all right, here's the thing. If that couple that we met pays for our dinner, we're going to adopt. We will, yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I told you. My son gets so excited. Really? That's how you decided, huh? Thanks. Thanks a lot. So this was the assumption. This would be the divine nudge, the confirmation we needed. So we finished our meal, and the bill never came. And so now we're getting a little antsy because we've made this commitment. And our server, our waitress came over, and we said, hey, can we get the check? And, you're not going to believe this, but that sweet couple over there paid for your meal. I'm like, oh, really? I should have ordered the cheesecake. But that's what happened. If you had asked me why, I would have had all of this language that was rooted in a past way of thinking. This is a picture of Jyoti with her new brother Sullivan a year later. In Bangkok, Thailand, we were preparing to bring him home, and the language in those days would have been God showed up, Jesus gave us exactly in the right moment what we needed for our life, the right person, the right sign, the right affirmation was made available. I would have spoken about these events with great confidence, certainty, clarity, and conviction. And it would have been easy because, of course, it was our version of build an ark, a fish, a wall, a lion's den, a ram caught in the thicket, a heavenly host. As though from some sort of altered place of reality, God rushed in, ruptured our normal, and came through. So here's the thing. Cards on the table. I'm 59, and having sat with these experiences now for years, it's just harder for me to make sense of those events today the same way I made sense of those events back then. And I want to, in a bit of a place of vulnerability, try to describe to you why. All right? So here's the first thing. Framing, I think, is everything. If you've ever been to Preface, you could probably testify to this, but there's wild amounts of permission given for curiosity through the experience of Preface here. To think more critically, you're handed a few more categories about the ideas and the experiences of your past. And I think it's always fascinating in that Preface experience one of the conversations that almost always emerges has something to do with a more expansive view of God, namely a God that is beyond the idea of the categories that we've placed upon God. More specifically, God is masculine. And it's a bit humorous at times because in our conversations about God being so much more than a he, without realizing it, and you can almost bank on it the whole time throughout the remainder of the experience, God continues to be referred to in the masculine as a he. Almost universally this happens. So we're having expansive conversations and the language is still he this, he that. And that's not to dig at anyone who uses masculine pronouns for God, but it's to say we've been so conditioned to use he when we anthropomorphize God. It just flows out of us without realizing at times or without catching ourselves and saying, I wonder if I should deploy more thoughtful, inclusive language around God. And simply put, it's just hard to break patterns of thinking and patterns of belief that we were taught or told were both certain and objective and inarguable. God is he. Calling as dramatic, supernatural, or definitive. Another way of saying this is that I think we lack the awareness, the curiosity, the permission, the courage to think critically about what it is that is true about our life or about our reality or our experiences in the here and the now and the past, which I think is a bit ironic. I mean, in the way the story of Jesus is framed, Jesus understood himself to be called by God. A calling he understood to include at some point his own execution, his own lynching, or at least that's what he described to his disciples. And yet he lived and ultimately died without the answer to the question, why? Why am I forsaken? Why has your voice gone silent? Why doesn't this make sense? And our framing, I think, when it comes to calling is often a search for something certain and objective. But should that really be the drill? Is calling something marked by certainty or objectivity? Or is it more subjective? Is it black and white? Is it binary? Is it concrete? Is it immovable? Or is it way more open, way more fluid, way more mysterious? Framing is everything. Framing trapped in certainty and objectivity. There's also framing, I think, that reconciles the unseen. And I'm going to bumble my way through this, so, just be ready. Looking in our rearview mirror in terms of the process of being called to adopt, there was a measure of what I would call Christian heroism that influenced our decision. White saviorism is another term that is often used for this idea. Those children are so lucky. They are. Y'all rescuing them from poverty, and I don't know why I'm using a southern accent right now, but not to mention, you're rescuing them from Hinduism, Buddhism. And ultimately, those kids are going to be in eternity with Jesus because you have chosen to adopt. And that is not an exaggeration. Those are conversations that were real. And to be fair, we would always say, they are saving us way more than we are saving them. And we knew that even at that stage. But this was also around the time that Madonna, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie were internationally adopting kids. They were putting these celebrity adoptions were highlighting international adoptions, which I think on the one hand was good. It normalized adoption. It made it more possible, more socially acceptable. But between Christian heroism and celebrity focus, adoption became a bit of a status symbol, which included at least some classism some racism, and that's probably being generous if you dig deep beneath the surface. It also didn't help that I am so easily mistaken for Brad Pitt. It's just exhausting. No, you can't get a picture with me and my kids. And you know, some of you aren't laughing. Some of you are, just a little too much. And for what it's worth, we talk openly about our kids about this, but part of reconciling the unseen was dealing with the reality that our egos enjoyed how it felt through a heroic framing of this conversation, something I never considered while feeling, quote, called at the beginning or in the moment. Let me problematize this just a little bit further. Regarding the same stories handed to us that framed our idea of divine calling. These same stories were also stories that informed some of the most atrocious, historical events that were anything but divine. Colonialism, the Crusades, the subjugation, murder, and genocide of indigenous people, Manifest Destiny, the development of the transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, oppression of women, immigrants, and LGBTQIA folks. Now we could keep going. The same stories that I would have argued animated my calling were the same stories that animated others' calling to do some of the most atrocious things that's ever happened. And I want to be careful here because none of what I've said diminishes the profundity or deletes or detracts from the joy or the gratitude that exists in our family, between our family, and certainly from Donna and I. It does, however, cause us to include way more mystery. It invites us into something more self-reflective, more authentic, more critically thought-provoking, more expansive, and arguably more sacred, more human, and messy, and I think more divine. More divine. Framing is everything. Framing trapped in certainty and objectivity. Framing that reconciles the unseen. And then this is maybe the last thing I would say about framing. Framing that embraces complexity and complication. There's probably a lot more to say about this than we have time for, but when in your world there's a certain degree of privilege and stability, there's actually bandwidth to think more reflectively about what your life means, what you're called to, what your purpose in life should be. Self-reflection is often the privilege of people who have enough. Enough food, enough safety, enough health care, some degree of financial security or predictability. And so I think being in a community that gets to even have this conversation, do you understand how much of a gift that is, y'all? It also invites a tremendous sense of humility and patience and gratitude as we have the conversation together. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think is this. For the better part of my adult life, anytime the word God was used for me, I had what I would consider to be a limited, unexamined, myopic view. A view of God framed dominantly as God as a super being, God who was somewhere else, detached, separate, waiting to rupture my reality and swoop in. But my categories for God, my categories for Jesus, my categories for just about everything have undergone seismic shifts, I would say, over the past 20 years. And I've talked about this in other spaces, and I've actually talked about it here on Sunday morning in past series, but it's hard for me when I think about me and whatever I mean by me or me-ness. It's impossible, as far as I can tell, how at any given moment to know where Matt O'Neill begins and ends and where God begins and ends. And, yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Why do I do that? Why do I distract myself? Matt begins and ends, God. Oh, there I am. Okay. It took me some time to make peace with that, because that's heresy on a good day from the world that I left. But what it does is it's I think, for speaking me terms, it's freed me up to develop, trust, and take responsibility for whatever inner authority I think might be informing my life. It's teaching me to hold loosely whatever life I think I need to engineer. But it also takes seriously that there is a rudder of some sort that I am gripping, and that my choices, the things that I hold true, or the things that I have convictions over, affect the direction of the boat. There's a Muslim poet, mystic named Rumi, and he writes this, and I think this summarizes even better than what I said. I looked for God and found only myself. And I looked for myself and found only God. And even when you can't see over the horizon, there's a sense of feeling fully alive, knowing that there's a mystical, mysterious relationship with the reality that you're experiencing, whether that's God or not, whether that's Jesus or not, is up for your decision. Like, you have to decide. That's for you. So Matt, how do you know when you were called to start Watershed? How did you know you were called to adopt? How did you know you were called to be a Kentucky basketball fan? That was easy. Like, God literally spoke for that one. And everyone else is going to hell that isn't. That's the other side of that. Hey, I'm just speaking the truth in love here. I think here's how I would respond to this today. I would say, here's the story, but here's what I think might be true, at least for right now, and that calling is something born more than something searched for or discovered. When Jesus was trying to make sense of the kingdom, or what it meant to be intermingled relationally with him at the time, he said things like this. He said, when you give a cup of cold water to the thirsty, when you visit someone in prison, when you come down out of your tree and you make right the wrongs you've committed, when you remove the plank from your eye, when you remove the burden of unjust religious laws from around the neck of the oppressed, when you clean the inside of your cup, when you give both your coat and your undergarment to someone naked and cold, when you tear off a roof and lower your friends into a space of healing, when you let go of your tribalistic view that dehumanizes yourself and others, when you stay awake to pray, when you break the bread and drink the wine. See, I think calling is born out of the mundane, the everyday, often less than sexy opportunities to be with and for one another, to give away one's self in service, your self-declared important self in the process. I think calling is born out of the commitment to curiosity, to staying awake to what's really happening in the unseen parts of our life or this world. The thing under the thing under the thing. We say that from time to time here. What's going on? Well, if you look at the surface, that's really not the story. It's the thing under the thing under the thing. I think calling is born out of the experience of being loved well and learning to love others well, or as well as you can. I had this beautiful exchange with someone last weekend. We'd been a bit sideways with each other for a while, and they stepped towards me with great courage and said, "Can we talk?" And at the end of the talk, one of the things that we walked away with was, wow. In reality, we were both just doing the best we could, just trying hard. Calling born out of being loved and loved well. I think that's why this community has so much potential, how it has so much importance. I also think calling is born out of our pain. I can't remember who said, out of suffering comes our greatest contribution to the world. I think a lot of people said it in different versions. Maybe it was Viktor Frankl. I'm not quite sure, but I love how my favorite philosopher these days, Ted Lasso, frames it. In conversation with Jamie Tart, who's trying to make sense of his relationship with an abusive and alcoholic father, Ted turns to Jamie and says, I hear Bono's father was a real piece of work, but then again, so was the Joshua tree. Pain and struggle can sometimes be the catalyst for clarity and greatness. And in this scene, in this episode of Ted Lasso, Ted points to Bono from U2 and the brilliance of the Joshua tree and suggests that painful circumstances can at some point lead to something remarkable. Calling, I surmise, then, is born out of staying awake, staying curious, being available, and participatory in the mundane and the ordinary. It's moving at the speed of trust towards people who can love you well and who you can learn to love well. But it's also born out of our wounds, out of the struggle within our everyday lived experiences. How are you framing the conversation around calling these days? Are you even asking the question? If you are, beautiful. I think there's no better place to ask that question than here. And if you're okay, or if you're not asking that question, beautiful. There's no better place to not ask the question than here. But if you're asking the question, I wonder if you're getting ahead of yourself. If you're asking the question about what you're called to do before you're asking, what is being born in me? What is being born through me? And what is being born out of my life? God, this morning, in a world where we just long for the clear voice of love and hope and courage and change, where it feels like there's way more silence, way more distortion, where there's a growing number of people who don't have enough and can't even ask the question. May we be a community, God, that begins to see our relationship with each other, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with who, what we understand to be God, or what it means to identify with or connect with or follow Jesus. May something be born. May something be born anew, or may something be born again. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Have you tried it on your own? But every time you failed, you gotta get back to the well. You gotta get back to the well. Is there no fire in your bones? Is it hard for you to feel? You gotta get back to the well. You gotta get back to the well. Are you hungry, thirsty, wandering and searching? There's a well that's sure to satisfy. Are you needy, weary, so tired of being empty every day? You're barely getting by. There's a well that satisfies.
Late on the excuse for the idols that we build. It's time to get back to
wandering and searching, there's a well that's sure to satisfy. And if you're needy, weary, so tired of being empty every day, you're barely getting by, there's a well to satisfy. There's a well to satisfy. There's a well to satisfy. There's a well that satisfies. God, this morning, our hearts, minds, our souls, God, they long for this well, this part of us that seems and feels bigger than us. We call it divine. And God, wherever we find those gaps, those places where our longing shows up, God, may we not run away from it. May we not hide in fear, but may we press into it. May we find ourselves being drawn to you through it. God, the clearest picture that we have of this movement towards the divine is this idea of Jesus, of Christ, being fully human and fully divine. So God, this week, as we encounter that longing, God, may we find you close. May we find the divine right next to us, right in our breath. God, we're grateful for a space where we can explore, a space where we can question old narratives, where we can find new wineskins for new wine. God, we're grateful for a group of people to do that alongside. We love each other. We love you, God, and we pray all this in your name. Amen. Thank you all so much for being here. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.